Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. I sort of feel like pig bombing. I should have WNST. I should have a little bit more fun with that. I do have fun with the Maryland Crab Cake Tour, and we're going to have fun this week. And I'm going to shave at some point for anybody watching out there wondering like where all the silver's coming from. Just feeling my 57th year and feeling some sort of playoff hockey beard on behalf of the dearly departed Seattle Mariners. We're going to be at Costas on Wednesday this week, eating crab imperial because I want to feel royal for my birthday. My other birthday boy, Leonard Raskin's going to be joining me this week at Costas. Next Tuesday, we'll be at State Fair in Catonsville. There is a rumor we'll be talking some baseball with Alan McCallum, amongst others, in the 21228, where life is great. Wednesday, the 5th, we're going to be at Coco's Pub back in Lauraville. I'm hoping Rasig will be my co-host there. I also have some great guests lined up for that one. And then on the 7th of November, we're back at Pizza John's in Essex, which just might lure this guy out, especially if the team's 1-9 by the time this happens. I don't know. Luke Jones joins us now. He is Baltimore Luke. We're not going to talk football in this one, even though I will hold up my Raven scratch off. We can talk about Lamar getting back on the field or not, or who's going to play. And they got 2 games in 4 days, and we'll get to all of that. Luke, it's the World Series. It's the World Series. And I've actually got my Dodgers belt buckle out from 1969. And, Janet Marie's my heart, so I can't like hate on the Dodgers. But I have found myself liking the Blue Jays. Don't tell anybody.
Wow.
Dude, I had a moment with Joe Carter and the home run. I even said to my wife, like in the 7th inning, I'm like, you know what they need? That I didn't say I use the F word, and I know, it's inappropriate here on the radio, but I said, Joey effing Bats right now. They need Edwin and Encarnacion. And instead, they just stole one of the cheaters from Houston, and boom, bang, they're in the World Series. Look at that.
Well, you get someone who's experienced, who has postseason experience, postseason success, and George Springer comes up big, no question.
That's why people listen to us. It's all that postseason experience you and I have, all those World Series games I've been to.
All those World Series games I haven't been to.
I've been to enough for both of us, even though, hey, I am glad I took you to Toronto. I will say this,
Sure,
that like
sure.
the whole time I've watched the games from Toronto the last 48 hours, I'm like, I'm so happy Luke and I did opening day up there, even if they didn't. Mark Shapiro, who's known me all his life, didn't let me into his press box. He let you in.
Think about it. When you remember back to opening day and the manner in which the Orioles won, hit all these home runs and blow them out. At that point in time, I think there was much more of a dialogue about Schneider than Brandon Hyde. So if we go back to opening day and say one of these teams is going to win the pennant in the American League and go to the World Series, and one of these teams is going to fire its manager, I think you would have been inclined to say maybe it'd be the other way around. Schneider would be gone, and maybe the Orioles.
Dude, on this day, as God is my witness, as you and I were in Toronto, I thought they had a chance to be hosting Game 1 of the World Series on Friday night.
Yeah, well, that was thwarted in about what, 2 weeks?
I mean, we
3 weeks?
haven't thought about that since like
Yeah.
it's almost like the Orioles didn't play in baseball this year. They played in like they did in all the Angelos years. They were just playing for a trophy. You know what I mean?
I mean, it speaks to the season being over Memorial Day weekend. You're 16 and or you're whatever it was, 16 and 34 in your first 50.
You watched a
it's just,
lot of baseball this summer for having no stake in the game. Having no chance to win.
Watched
right?
a lot of baseball over the last 15 years covering the team, where there were seasons like that, worse than this past year.
32 years, these poor people in Toronto. I feel like it was 5 minutes ago that I was sitting in the upper deck and Mitch Williams was delivering the hit to Joe Carter. Hi, Julie. Julie's my friend who went to the game with me that night in Toronto. So, I mean, but it's been 32 years.
Yeah,
Like it really puts some tread on the tire to feel like, because the Blue Jays don't feel irrelevant to me. They were very relevant for a long time, but they've been irrelevant. But they do look good in these unis.
Oh, sure. I mean, the fact that they went back, and it's been several years since they've done that, but when they were messing around, like they had that charcoal color and the weird logo, and yeah, just get back to your roots. When you have something that works, use it. But
the digital Blue Jay, remember that one? Ugly.
yeah, just terrible stuff. But it's funny you mentioned you found yourself rooting for the Blue Jays. I I can't bring myself to do that, and it's because you have to think about when I grew up.
It was Pete Harnish in the nail, right? I mean, it really was.
I mean,
Bob Malachy.
it wasn't even. I mean, that was like the beginning of what I remember.
Dave Johnson hates the Blue Jays. He told me.
But I think more in terms of just 93 and or 92 and 93, Cito
Cito sucks.
Gaston,
I printed a
the
lot of Cito
All-Star,
sucks
yeah,
shirts. I
the
did.
All-Star game
Yeah.
thing, the idea of you can't have a Canadian team win the world, just like the
See, I'm sort of pulling for the Canadians because we're effing them all up.
well,
So, you know.
I would say this. I mean, if there's a silver lining to Seattle having lost, it's the Orioles won't have the distinction of having the longest drought in the American League without a pennant, right? I mean, the Mariners are still without one since they entered the league in what, 76, 77, whatever that was.
I do feel bad for the Seattle people. I mean,
Sure. I
I'm
mean,
an
well,
Ichiro guy. I got friends in Seattle. I've had a good time in Seattle. I don't want them to not go to the World Series ever. They deserve to go to the World Series. So it wasn't
they
like
had their
it was a
chance.
battle of good guys to me. It wasn't like I didn't
Sure. No,
have
I agree with
I
that.
didn't have a bad guy. And how do you root against the catcher from the Blue Jays? He reminds me of when I was an Ovaltine catcher. I was a chunky little pint-sized sort of, oompa loompa looking catcher when I was a kid, except I couldn't hit the ball like that. That dude's great.
Yeah, yeah, no question about. Well, the catcher for Seattle's pretty good too, with the historic season he just
By the
had.
way, his emotions after the game too, and I go back to Freddie Patek crying in the dugout in Kansas City. So like, I have so much history with baseball that it really does come back to me. When these games get tight, I don't fall asleep. I sit straight up. I remember Carlton Fisk and where I was that night when I was 7 years. Like it all, the Kirk Gibson home run. There's anniversaries every day of something where McNally did this or Palmer did that or I love October and I hate being locked out and I hate that the new owner's a creep and that I have to talk about him in this fashion and like all of that. But I do love baseball, man. I was at Dodger Stadium 3 weeks ago, sitting there having a Dodger dog and the World Series is going to be there this week. I saw Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be at Chavez Ravine. I won't miss it. I mean, I found myself more into the baseball game than the two football games
Oh
on Monday
yeah,
night, even though the football games were good.
we're
I mean,
good, but yeah, I mean it. When you consider, and I'll even go back to late last week with what Shohei Ohtani did, from an individual
oh my, how
standpoint.
can we
I
get
mean,
15 minutes into this? We haven't talked
right.
about that.
I mean, obviously the Dodgers swept, and that series didn't materialize from a competitive standpoint in the way that anyone thought, considering the Brewers were the best team in baseball.
Are you too young to
But
hate the Brewers? Because you weren't around in 82?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
82, yeah, obviously was before my time. And I mean, the Brewers pivoted to the NL in what, 97, 98, whenever that was. So it was strange.
But like a Milwaukee Seattle World Series would have been really weird.
Well, baseball is very happy that it's Toronto, LA, I suppose, because you say, okay, it's a big market in the United States,
And they
and
got
we've
Canada.
got all of Canada, right? So they should do a good number there. But I mean, I just think with what Ohtani did, and the man crush I've had on him in terms of even if you're a casual baseball fan, to just try to contextualize what he does and what he did specifically in that clincher where pitches 6 shutout innings, he strikes out 10. He hits 3 home runs also. I mean, it's like Lamar Jackson throwing 4 or 5 touchdown passes and oh yeah, he had a pick six and 2 sacks in the
By the way,
game
some
too. I
D-bag
mean,
was on my Facebook arguing. I say it's why my Facebook numbers are up because I let people argue as long as they're not complete
were
a-holes.
they arguing?
That somebody has been better than Shohei Ohtani. And I'm like, dude,
I mean, look, have there been better hitters than Shohei Ohtani? Yes. Have there been better pitchers than Shohei Ohtani? Yes. But as I've said to you now for a couple years, and look, I don't know how much longer Ohtani's going to be a two-way player. And he's already had a couple elbow injuries. So I understand that. And I would understand that from the Dodgers' perspective of saying, yeah, at some point in time, we may need to abandon this. But when you see what he does on Friday night, it's extraordinary. I mean, it is in anything that's a team sport, it's right up there with anything you can think about. Chamberlain's 100 points. And there have been some really special postseason performances, and fully acknowledging that was a game 4. It wasn't a game
the history of
7,
the games hit
but
3 home runs and pitched 6 innings. I
yeah,
mean, what? Come
I
on.
mean, right. But I mean, it's such a short list, and I saw a few people throw out, Bob Gibson, what he did in a game seven, Don Larson obviously throwing a perfect game. You think back to
I think Jack
Earl,
Morris's
yeah,
thing was
oh sure.
unbelievable.
I mean, like you can go down the list, and there've been some special things, but all of those performances were either a pitcher pitching or a hitter doing something really special, not someone doing something special in each department. And so it was just incredible. And I'm looking forward to seeing him on that stage. I mean, it's funny. Even going back to last year, we've talked so much about the Dodgers in the context of what? All the injuries that they've had. The fact last year that they won the World Series with their pitching staff being held together by duct tape, right? I mean, they were using openers and all kinds of stuff. But you look at them now, they have an Ohtani who's as close to 100% as he's been in quite some time. They have Blake Snell doing what he's done, right? They have Glass now. It's funny, these guys that have missed time, and I mean, Blake Snell barely pitched during the regular season. I mean,
Well, see, Bieber pitched the other night. I forgot he was there.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. I mean, but
I
it's
think of him as an
interesting.
Indian.
But it's the flip side though of these injuries. And look, I'm not at all suggesting that there's a silver lining to Tommy John surgery or UCL surgery or whatever. But you do have these Dodgers pitchers who suddenly feel like they're in midseason form because they didn't pitch a full season. So it is interesting in that way. But to bring it back to the Blue Jays, I mean, you know, obviously everyone here in town knows it's been 42 years for the Orioles. For the Blue Jays, it had been 32 years. Uh, there's always something, especially for me, someone who's never, as a 2 week old infant, had no recollection of the Orioles winning the World Series. You look at something like that, you see the emotions of that crowd. I mean, that when Springer hit that 3-run homer, I mean,
I
it
was in the
was
building when Carter hit the home run.
remarkable.
So, like,
Yeah.
I have very, very vivid recollections of that,
But
right? I
you
mean,
just, yeah, and you
and
see,
I remember the sound. I remember the
yeah,
sound walking out. I remember being at a young, and I just saw it there, and I saw how empty and cold it was when you and I walked up there opening day,
yeah,
especially the second game when they're giving away hats. Appreciate the hat, by the way. I'm going to wear that on behalf of Getty. By the way, I think I'm rooting for Blue Jays because of Getty's grandson. I saw Getty and his grandson sitting there in the third row, and to your point, it's like it's been 32 years for the Toronto people. Let them win, man. I mean,
yeah.
certainly the Maple Leafs are never going to win. I had Brad Gagnon on last week, my NFL buddy who lives in Toronto, and I said to him like, and he's not a Maple Leafs fan, he's a Canadiens fan, but like the Maple Leafs to Toronto are bigger than the Lakers in LA, bigger than the
Yeah,
Yankees in New York, bigger. I mean, they're akin to like what soccer is in Mexico, the national
right.
team. Just an incredible thing. And they can't piss a drop, and their best player just signed somewhere else. So it's kind of in Vegas, but for me, the Blue Jays there and seeing that and going back to Exhibition Stadium, Dave Stieb, even watching Ricky Henderson and Paul Molitor run around there, and all the bad vibes with Cito and like all that. It's been
Right.
30, it's been
Long time ago.
33 years since we had bad vibes with Cito Gaston. So it's just been that's a third of a century. It's crazy. 33
Yeah.
years.
It's
So
just,
let them win, man. They're having a great time.
yeah, I mean, I don't really, there are very few teams I root against anyway, at this point in my life. But yeah, and it's funny, as I said to you, I don't really find myself rooting for them because they were the Yankees when I was 9 and 10 years old. I mean, seriously, they were. I mean,
Well, the Oakland
the
A's were that to me as a boy,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the Yankees weren't the Yankees at that. They weren't back to being the Yankees for a few more years after that. But I think to 92 and 93, and I think to the 93 All-Star game, before we even get to Cito and Messina warming up and any of that, just the starting lineup being announced. And it's a Blue Jay and a Blue Jay and a Blue Jay and a Blue Jay, right? I mean, they were so good. And you think back to those teams. I mean, you mentioned they added Molitor, they added Ricky Henderson as hired guns, but they had Robbie Alomar, who I know wasn't a homegrown Blue Jay, but blossomed into a superstar. They had Joe Carter, who had been elsewhere, but really achieved a higher level of fame as a Blue Jay. Devon White was, even though I didn't like the Blue Jays, was one of my favorite non-Orioles growing up, just because of how great of a center fielder he was. I mean, that guy was special defensively. And you go down the list, and they had, Dwayne, they had Ward, they had
Hanky.
Hanky. I mean, they had such good
They
bullpen
had
arms.
Olerud.
Yeah, Right. I mean, Olerud, the guy with the batting helmet. You know, when you're 8 or 9 years old, you're fascinated with the idea of why someone's wearing a batting helmet in the
See, these are
field.
names on baseball cards too. I knew all these guys. So, like, I had like being around them and being around that team and being on the field at Sky Dome, which I was many, many times at the press pass,
Mhm.
doing my show out on the field at Sky Dome, doing my show in the press box at Sky Dome. Like, all of that vibe there, the hot dogs with the little seeds on the buns and the way things poutine, a little different. They do things up there a little different. Um, I I feel like they should have been more of over the last 30 years a relevant team. Corporate ownership,
Sure.
they are the national team there. I'm quite frankly, and a little bit is about money and the exchange rate. When Greg Zahn was working up there for many, many years, I knew about all of this stuff. But I would just say for Toronto baseball and for the Raptors having won, and they don't have an NFL team, the Bills are their team, their de facto team, so they haven't won anything there either any more than anybody in West Aurora, New York has won. But for me, with the Blue Jays and their mark in Canada, I'm shocked that they haven't been a more powerful brand because they've had unlimited money. They have national support, which is a lot different when you're there, for sure,
Sure.
for sure. And no one here will feel it in Middle River or whatever, but like there's a sense of Canadian pride that even Springer, Vladdy, all of those players, they're Chad Steele, unlike the goofs we have here who speak down and run away from the fans. Those guys have all been coached that they're like representing the country.
Oh yeah, they
And
you
they
could
say that, and you feel that, and you
yeah.
feel it, and it's indoctrinated from the minute you get there because they have to pass. They have their passport. I have my passport right here. Don't ask me why. Trump's president. I got to keep it nearby, and I'm Venezuelan. But when they have to pull their passport out every
Yeah.
time they come in and out of where they play, it's a different vibe being a Blue Jay, and anybody that's ever played there tells me that. And I'm talking about back in the day. There was a gal that worked in the Blue Jays front office who I dated back in the day, at 1991, 92, 93. And she worked for the team. She had team rings, the whole deal. And just getting to know her and getting to know like what the organization was about and Pat Gillick at that time running it. And then I got to know Pat running us, right? Just there it's a different kind of franchise because it's in a different country. And you were there for 5 minutes and had
Yeah.
your thing with it, and it was opening day and whatever. And there was some heat for opening day in Toronto, but there was zero expectation that they'd be hosting game one of the World Series on Friday night. And if there had been, I think you would have seen even more spirit there for them because they've really been close to being like in the World Series in a long time. And as much as I talk about them in the terms of they've got money, they've got a Baltimore guy running the franchise who locked me out of his press box, Ron Shapiro, Mark Shapiro, shameful. But nonetheless, they have this branding thing that you think of them as the bad guy in the black hat because of your childhood in Cito Gaston. Dude, they could easily become that again. I'm just saying that in our division,
Yeah.
they're going to have resources on the back end of this. And I had Todd Radom on this week, my art buddy, my cartoon logo buddy, who talked at length about in 1977 when they came in, the Blue Jays didn't make this is Major League Baseball. It's got marking on the back. 1969, they pulled their money for marketing. The Blue Jays didn't participate because they were in Canada and they didn't have to participate in American laws. The Expos did. The Expos participated with the Major League. The Blue Jays did their own thing because they made so much more money
Yeah.
being Canadian. And I'm telling you, beware of this. If my ramblings and all my boojah about all of this for the listeners out there, and your eyes are rolling back as well. The Blue Jays are in our division, and they just moved into Yankee or where the Red Sox were for a long time territory of being really popular. And
Yeah.
that's going to pack Skydome for the next year. It's the Canadians hate America right now. Why wouldn't they? We have an orange creep who's an a-hole destroying everything about everything he touches, including the White House. Canadians are going to use this as nationalism. They're going to come to Toronto and see the Blue Jays play next year if they win the World Series. Even if they don't, I guess probably see Geddy Lee too. I'm going to go to Toronto to see Geddy Lee next year. But I'm just saying, like, this is going to help the Blue Jays have the kind of money that Mr. Rubenstein doesn't want to spend on baseball players. The Blue Jays just moved into play to be in play for Rutschman if he ever figures himself out, or Gunnar Henderson, or whatever. They're going to become a big money team again.
Well,
And your bad guyness of them, and as well as the nail and Pete Harnish and the whole deal for me in '89, um, that should worry Orioles fans a little bit that they become the big guy again.
fair enough. I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I think in the same way that I recall a decade ago, you and I were talking about what happened in Kansas City and the Royals, and obviously Toronto and Canada, much bigger market, much bigger footprint, much bigger growth opportunity than the Midwest and Kansas City and all
Nothing
that.
sells like the flag either,
But
especially in Canada.
but you also have to sustain, right? We also know in this day and age that it can be fleeting. I mean, Blue Jays a year ago, the Blue Jays were the Orioles. They went 74 and 88. They were in last place in the American League, right? I mean, if there's anything the Orioles can take away with this beyond the beware, the cautionary tale that you just laid out there in terms of what this could mean for what's been regarded as a sleeping giant. I mean, we talked about this 2 winters ago when the Blue Jays tried to sign Ohtani, right? I mean,
I
ironically,
was in Toronto that night, dude. It was
yeah,
insane.
I mean, what was it? Someone even brought up the tweet of John Morosi from MLB Network, reporting that Ohtani was on his way to Toronto, even though apparently he wasn't, or whatever ended up happening there, and ultimately he landed in LA. And it's ironic that Ohtani, the Dodger, is going to be at Rogers Center here in the coming
Yeah,
days.
we get Japan in
But
this and everything. It really is
yeah,
an
I mean, it's
international event, right?
this is like it's fun. I
Vladdy's
mean,
bringing the islands in. Look
yeah,
out.
and you just said it. I think if you're an Orioles fan and you're trying to take something away from this, one, the fact that Toronto turned things around after the year they had last year, a year, 2 years ago at this time, we were talking about the Blue Jays in the terms of, you can have these young players and it can feel good and you can make the playoffs a couple times and it can go one of two ways. It can continue to progress or it can go away. It looked like it had completely gone away for them. Think back to where they were earlier this year. I mean, there was plenty of doubt whether Vlad was going to sign a long-term deal. And he did. I still wonder what that deal looks like 8, 9 years into it, whatever. I mean, you're already talking about someone who's a first baseman and a little bit on the heavier side and all that. How's he going to age? But for right now, it's fantastic, and he was huge for them, right? I mean, he was, every bit the MVP until Springer hits the 3-run homer. So, yeah, I mean, you see how quickly it can turn. As bad as it was for the Orioles this year, and as much as I have plenty of doubts about what's going to happen in terms of manager and signings and just what the organization's doing collectively, it's a reminder that things can turn. And just because something heads south doesn't mean that it can't reverse and go back in a positive direction. So
Well, it turned
hopefully,
around here when they could get Corbin Burns and they could get Kyle
sure,
Bradish to the hill. And
sure.
I mean, the Bradish Rogers cliffhanger, and we'll pick this up. I'm going to have Alan on the show next week when I do the. By the way, Luke Jones is here. He's Baltimore Luke. Like, we have a cliffhanger here with a baseball team with all of this raw talent in young players that has not blossomed, other
Yeah.
than maybe Gunnar Henderson and a little bloom on Jackson Holiday and their young guys, and the pitching side of Rogers and Bradish and what becomes of that, who's going to manage it, how it's going to be funded, and what ingredients are going to be necessary to be added to it. And that's where you've been a prick the last two off seasons. Everybody's been harder on them than me in the last two off seasons in regard to acquisitions. But my monocle will be out to take a look at what's going on, because I'm looking at what's going on in Toronto, and there is your cautionary tale of
Yeah.
they're in the World Series and they can win it, and we didn't even consider them. We didn't even put them on the. We worried more about New York and Tampa Bay for
Well,
long stretches of the year, really.
sure. Well, and I mean, you just look at it and they were bad last year. They the last couple of years they had trended in a bad direction. I mean, I know we had this conversation where I kind of said the Blue Jays were kind of where the Orioles were 2 years earlier, right? You kind of go back to where they were in 2021. They look like the team. I mean, because they had Vlad, they had Bichette. I mean, go down the list of sons of former major leaguers that they had, and it looked like it was going to be this dynasty, and then suddenly it didn't look that way, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, it's going to be busted up, and these guys never did much of anything, and then lo and behold, they're in the World Series suddenly. I mean, things
Without
turned.
Santander.
Sure, I mean that's the thing. I mean, it's you. Do you know Anthony Santander, excluding the postseason, and obviously only played a few games in the postseason, he played the same number of games as Tyler O'Neill this year. Literally the same number of games as Tyler O'Neill. I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, you look at that deal. That deal, 1 year in, has been a colossal failure for them, and they're tied to him longer than the Orioles are to O'Neill. But it speaks to not everything needs to go perfectly, but you need to make good decisions, and you need your stars to be stars. Otherwise, and you need to be able to pitch. And hey, look at the fact that they had a couple rookies, a couple guys that they called up from their farm system and did some big things for them in some big spots. So
Talk about Bichette. He's going to come back and play.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's the thought, right? I mean that's what they've kind of been hoping for. But you even go back to what game 6 it was, where look at who pitched for them. You Savage. I mean this is a guy who made his major league debut in September, right? And he's pitching pretty darn well.
He was pitching for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats 3 months ago.
I mean, so it just speaks, but it speaks to, like, if you're trying to lay out how the Orioles turn this around, I mean, you can learn a lot from the Blue Jays, right? And I'm not talking in terms of the growth potential moving forward for them, in terms of whether they, and I'm in agreement with you, whether they win or not. And by the way, I fully expect the Dodgers to win the World Series. I mean,
You a
as much,
Gosman guy or are you not a Gosman
I
guy? There's
mean,
another Oriole thing there.
sure, I was a Gosman guy. I mean, I remember talking to you for years how I didn't like how they ping ponged him back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. He himself really worked a long time on whether he was going to be a slider or a curveball guy, when in reality it just needed to be focus on your fastball split combo. I mean, because that's elite. And, whatever else you throw, fine, as show me pitches, but that's how you're going to eat. And, he's ended up having a nice career. And keep in mind, he was someone who, even when he was traded from the Orioles, he had a couple years there where it was kind of really into a tailspin for him. I mean, he got to Toronto and has become not like this bona fide true number one ace in the sense that you think of like a Corbin Burns or someone like
He didn't
that.
become what Arrieta became, but
But he's
he's
still had a
yeah.
really nice career. Yeah. So, you look at something like that. I mean, from an Orioles standpoint, yeah, I've always liked my interactions with Kevin Gosman, and happy to see him in the World Series, and we'll see what happens.
All I did was
But
watch ex players the other night. It was like Arthur Millette's running around and Rocky Sin's
yeah,
running
it's
around.
funny. Yeah, full
And
disclosure,
as injured as the Lions are, they competed, and as injured as the Blue Jay. I mean, Blue Jays doing this without Bichette, doing it
yeah,
like no problem, like in the World Series. Like there is a point where battling through whatever the adversity is. You mentioned the Dodgers. These are two pretty banged up teams. We talk about the Orioles and their problems, and they
sure.
certainly were banged up. But the problem with the Orioles is the guys who were on the field weren't good enough.
I mean, it's both, right? Yeah, injuries are going to be a hindrance, but as I also said back in April and May and June, before it was over, right? I kept saying at that point in time, it's like you can't sit here and say that you need everything to go perfectly in order to succeed. That's not a good plan then. You're going to have some things that are going to work against you, right? Uh, look at last year. The Orioles had injuries last year, and they still, I know they had a disappointing second half, but they still made the playoffs. I go back to 2014, which was the high water mark in terms of regular season for the Buck Showalter era. Matt Wieters had Tommy John surgery that year and missed most of the season. Manny Machado hurt his other knee in August of that year and was completely out. Chris Davis was suspended in September, and yet that was a team that finished and for my money was still the best team in the American League that year, but the Royals got hot at the right time and the Orioles cooled off at the wrong time, and that was all she wrote, right? But that was another example of a year where things did not go perfectly. So, yeah, you need to hope you have enough depth, hope you have enough resolve, Hope you have enough veteran leadership and experience. We talked about that a lot with the Orioles. We're talking about that with the Ravens right now and their player leadership or lack thereof, or questions about it in terms of being 1-5 and getting off the mat. But like you look at someone like George Springer, where, I mean, he's been a huge performer for them when, the last couple years it had maybe not looked like that, exactly. But he comes up in that spot and he has all this experience. And I get it, the Astros cheating, all like I'm not shying away from that part of the narrative, that part of his story, but he's also had a lot of success. And he hits a 3-run homer in that spot, and it's absolutely madness. I mean, that every time I hear a building explode like that, I think back to Delman Young's double. And I get it. It was the division series. The Orioles got swept in the ALCS, all of that. But I
It
think
takes a lot for that roar to
that
happen, right?
roar, the
Yeah.
roar and the vibration, and when it feels like the stadium is swaying, right? I mean, I the first time I ever experienced that feeling in my life was Tony Banks throwing the touchdown to Shannon Sharp against Jacksonville in week 2, 2000. I mean, that's the first
You know
time.
what I think about? I think about being in the upper deck when Flacco threw the pick to Palomalu in Pittsburgh because that
Oh, yeah.
building sways.
Yeah.
The upper deck in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is built to move, and it freaking moves. If
Yeah.
you, so, for anybody who wants a thrill ride, go sit in the end zone in Pittsburgh where the upper deck literally moves 6 inches. It's built that way.
Yeah.
So I felt buildings
It's a
move.
scary feeling. Yeah, it's a scary feeling.
AFC Championship game, yes, yes, I felt that.
No, but like I said, I mean, going back to when I first experienced that, it's funny. I actually was in a walking boot at the time. I had a stress fracture in my foot, and I thought the upper deck was going down. Like
Well,
it
if
was
you think
crazy.
about the Joe Carter when he's flailing his arms and the fireworks are going off, I was in left field in fair territory. The ball landed below me
Not
in
far from where the
literally where
press
the press
box is
box
now,
was,
by the
where the
way.
press box is now.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. The ball landed below me, and I was with my friend Julie, and I can feel the building sway. And that moment that it happened, I turned to my wife and I'm like, that's that's a yowza. Because
yeah,
she was like nodding off next to me, sitting on the couch, and I'm like, that's gone.
yeah.
She sat up and like the hair on the back of my neck stood up because it 32 years, boom, I'm there all over again,
And by the
And it
since
made me think of Mitch Williams and Kurt Schilling, which wasn't the greatest feeling, by the way.
and by the way,
Len Dykstra too.
how do the Mariners not have Andres Munoz in there at that point in time? I mean, it's the top of the lineup. Go ahead runs at the plate. Like, you need your best. I know he's your closer, but it's the Zach Britton thing all over again. If you're waiting for the save situation, it may never come. So
I kept having
I
to
don't
look up
know.
Dan Wilson's career stats. I said to my wife, like, I talked to that guy. He didn't have a porn stash back in the 90s when I knew him, man. Like,
Yeah,
what is that? But
yeah.
nonetheless, yeah, I feel bad for the Mariners,
I do too.
because it's
I
so
mean,
close and so far. As we know, getting swept in the ALCS, as we walked out of Kansas City that night 12 years ago, whatever it was now, we're like, you know,
you don't know when you're going to be
what's the
back.
Eminem song? Opportunity knocks once in a lifetime, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's every little boy or girl who loves baseball talks about Game 7 in the backyard. I mean, they do, right?
Right,
And
sure.
and I get it. I
I
mean,
was
you
always
you
Eddie.
right. I mean, I was Cal. I was Eddie or Cal. Eddie. I didn't want to be Eddie quite as much because I just couldn't swing left-handed, right? And Eddie, you had to do the switch hitting thing, right? So, but yeah, I mean, you think about that scenario and what the Blue Jays, the euphoria they experienced, and the absolute gut-wrenching nature of how the Mariners lost. I mean, you had the lead in the seventh inning. I mean, how about? I mean, Julio Rodriguez was having a big game, right? I mean, absolutely big. Right off the bat, helps them get an early lead, hits a home run later in the game. I mean, so it's gut-wrenching for one side, it's agonizing for one side, and it's absolute euphoria for the other side. All that said, I think reality is going to hit the Blue Jays. I think the Dodgers. You know,
Dodgers in 5, I say.
I mean, I believe me. I hope it goes 7. I'm rooting for a great series. I mean, you've got two really cool venues for the World Series. Dodger Stadium and Rogers Center, which will always be Sky Dome to me. I think about it as that way as a kid. But man, the Dodgers have looked every bit the team of we went through the motions in the regular season just to get to this moment, and it's go time. So we'll see. Toronto, hey, the bats when they're clicking offensively, they're tough to beat. So we'll see how it plays out. But man, between Ohtani's individual performance and what we witnessed in not just Game 7, but just Game 6 as well. I mean, keep in mind, Toronto came back here. I mean, they were down 0-2 at home. I mean, it's pretty special what they were able to do. So
They went out to Washington, had a work trip out in
yeah,
Seattle last week.
they did some heavy lifting because it wasn't looking good for them early on. So, credit to them, even if it's begrudgingly, talking from an AL East perspective. But hopefully, if you're the Orioles, you're taking notes and seeing, hey, you can turn things around. You can be a last place team and then win a pennant the following year. But boy, they've got a lot of work to do in order to make that happen. That's for sure.
You want me to sing the Blue Jay song to you? Because I can.
You can.
Yeah. You got a
Go for
diamond,
it.
nine men, a bat, a ball, and that's not all. What do you want? Let's play ball. Okay, Blue Jays. Let's play ball. That's exactly it.
It's so
That's
great.
exactly it.
It's so great that every team, not every team, but so many of these teams have a song from the 70s or the early 80s. I mean, obviously it's Orioles magic for here, but it's so
All I hear
it's
is the
so
first
corny
three
and it's
strains of
great.
Tom Sawyer and Getty behind home plate. Dude, I'm going to get my little beanie cap, that my Getty Lee Blue Jays beanie cap that they gave you the second day of the season, and I might put it on and I might wear it because I have a Dodgers hat and people think I'm a Dodgers guy. Truth is, I just love Janet Marie and I love Dodger Stadium and I was there a couple weeks ago. But hey, how about that? I went to two baseball games, well, three if you count opening day, which really isn't. It's just more of a cocktail party. But I went to three games all year long. I went to opening day and I went to opening day in Toronto with you.
Mhm.
And I went to Dodger Stadium with my wife to see the Giants and Yamamoto pitch. Saw Shohei play for the first time. He struck out looking first at bat. Um, so I've been to Dodger Stadium and Skydome this year, and I would say this: the bad news is because I was thinking like, do I want to go to the World? I don't really want to go to the World Series or like go up to Toronto. Although being in the presence of Getty, the next time I'm in the presence of Getty, he's going to be singing "Free Will" probably. Um, but if I go back to Toronto, I didn't do this, and I'm going to do it the next time. They have these Korean rice hot dogs that they sell on the concourse there. It's not like the poutine, but it's a little weird. I know you can get them in like DC and places where like New York, go places where it's sort of like Korean, but I want to get a Korean rice hot dog the next time I go to Toronto for a baseball game. So we play. Where do we open next year? Where do the Orioles do? What's opening day?
Man, you put
Drag
me on
me
the
somewhere good, man. I
no,
mean,
I think they open at home in
well, I
26.
love that they opened the season in Toronto and we went. How
It
about that?
is, hold
They
on,
can open in Toronto every year for me.
I want to make sure I
It's
have this right.
indoors. It's warm
Yeah,
in there.
I thought so. I didn't want to say the wrong team. They open against the Twins on March 26th.
March what?
March 26th. Wear
Opening day?
wear your
Outside? Baltimore?
wear your parka.
All I see is Jay Gibbons in the snow and poor Rodrigo
Rodrigo
Lopez.
Lopez.
My neighbor, Rodrigo Lopez, one of the all-time greats. All right, he's Luke. I'm Nestor. We love baseball. We're done talking about it. Baseball has been better good to me. Actually, Alan McCallum's going to join us at State Fair next week. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. I'll have Raven Scratch-Offs to give away. We're Costas in Timonium this week on Wednesday. I will get back to Dundalk. Man, Nick's giving me a hard time down there. You give up on Dundalk and Timonium. State Fair in Catonsville next Tuesday morning for breakfast, the 28th. That would be the day of Game 4 of the World Series. Alan will be with me in the morning, trying to drag Luke to Catonsville as well. Coco's Pub in Lauraville on the 5th, Wednesday the 5th, and then the 7th of November will be at Pizza John's in Essex. And I went to Pizza John's the other night to get a pizza before the football games on Sunday. Actually, Saturday night I went in. Saturday night went in, and lady at the counter, she knows I love her. I'm going to leave her nameless because she's going to have to do the show with me 2 weeks from Friday. And she gives me a hard time. I hadn't shaved. I came in, my hair's a mess. What's the matter? You don't want to sit down and eat here? I'm like, do I look like I'm ready to sit in Essex and have a meal right now? And one of the other girls is like, well, you're not doing your show in here tonight. I'm like, I'm doing the show in here in a couple of weeks. And I thought to myself, what delineates between, because my wife always wants to sit down in Pizza John's because Pizza tastes better right out of the oven. Cheesesteaks,
Does.
it just does. For me, it's French fries and gravy. I can't take French fries home because they don't keep like that.
They're
So
soggy, yeah.
when I want French fries, proper crinkle cut at Pizza John's, I sit in. So I told her Friday, November 7th, I'm gonna have French fries and gravy. I'm going to have pizza the way I like it with pineapple and ham and pepperoni. I'm going to have a cheesesteak the way I like it, mushroom, double provolone, a little bit of fried onions, lettuce, tomato. In Philly, they call it tourist style. What do they know? They're not in the World Series this year. So, and their football team's like, speaking of football, we'll get back to football.
I was going to say better than ours still.
Luke's in Owings Mills. Lamar's in Owings Mills. I don't know if he'll be on the field in Baltimore on Sunday. We got a big week ahead. I am Nestor. He's Luke. We are WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking. Baltimore positive. Stay with us.